oh, wait. There's a community relations department. I could work for a professional sports team and use the power of the team and its athletes and its resources to impact kids, families, communities in a majorly positive way. Okay, this aligns with who I am as a person. This kind of reflects what my childhood background was. I want to do this.
Welcome to the Game of Her Own podcast, a podcast about women who work in sports. I'm your host, Jahaan Blake. After 15 years of working for 3 major league teams, including the Boston Red Sox, Los Angeles Dodgers, and the Chicago Cubs, I discovered the one thing I loved the most was helping women in sports shatter glass ceilings and take their seat at the table. I loved it so much that I made a business out of it. I have the honor of coaching high-performing women in the sports and entertainment industry and supporting them as they go after exactly what they want in their career. So if you are feeling tired of waiting on the sidelines, done being overlooked for promotions, and you're ready to pull ahead of the pack and take your career to the next level, girl, I'm here for it. I also created the Game of Her Own podcast to support you as well. We are here to share the stories of incredible women who work in sports and entertainment. These leaders and trailblazers will inspire you with their success and the lessons they've learned along the way to the top. Ladies, there is nothing like women empowering women. I am so honored you're here. What I love about interviewing is the passion I feel when talking to these badass women who work in sports. It is no different when it comes to Bridget Gannon. She's the Senior Director of Social Impact and Events at the National Basketball Retired Players Association. We first met when she joined one of my cocktails and conversation with women in sports. I could feel her passion literally come through the screen. She was so supportive of other women who were sharing challenges that they were going through. She was so good during cocktails and conversation that my podcast editor texted me and said, we have to get her on the show. Well, it is finally here. I can't wait for you to hear my great conversation with Bridget. Listen in as we talk about the work that she does in the community space, the power of things like curiosity, internal politics, and having allies. She also talks about why she is known as the Get Shit Done Queen. I love it, and y'all are gonna love hearing from Bridget. All right, friends, let's do this. Bridget, this has been a long time coming since I first met you in Cocktails and Conversation, but welcome to the Game of Her Own podcast.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Woohoo, I'm so excited. Okay, before we get into everything, take us back in time and tell us when you first fell in love with sports.
Oh gosh, I don't even remember because I think it just always was there. For those who know me and those who don't, you're going to learn really quick. I am from Philly and you're just born with this sports gene. Your blood is green. You're obsessed with Rocky. And you will love your teams even when they suck. And it's very painful, but it makes you resilient and strong. It's just always was there, I think, my love of sport. There's just something about like sitting in our backyard and as like a really little kid listening to Harry Callis calling Phillies games. And then I just remember like waiting until I was old enough to be able to play sports. I come from a neighborhood in Philly where you just like played everything. And when you're really young, like think like, 4 or 5 starting out in T-ball, the boys and the girls all play together. It was just what you did. And it was what your neighborhood did. And I grew up in a neighborhood where there were way more boys my age than girls. So playing like jailbreak, back the crick, and, we were like always active. So then when you transition into T-ball, and I remember my first team, I played for the Andorra A's. So like we were all like Oakland A's colors and symbols. And I remember kind of like being sad because I thought we were going to get like Phillies stuff, but that's not how T-ball works. Yeah, it was always there. So definitely like baseball is my first love just because I feel like that's just always been there. And listening on the radio is just like going to games. It's just the soundtrack of summer and going to our neighborhood games. And everybody was always up at the fields. And it was what it was. And then as you got older, you started to do basketball, you started to do soccer. I did cheerleading for a year because I loved being on the sideline and knowing what cheer to call because of what just happened in the game. Okay, this just happened in the game, so we need to do this cheer. And I loved that. And then being in Philly too, with having the Schuylkill River, like I was able to, the Fairmount Park Association had a free learn to row summer camp for kids who were from like financially limited backgrounds. And I was able to take that opportunity. And so to be able to row on the Schuylkill River, which is so historic, like sports has always been there. And I've tried to dip my toes into like every type of sport. And I just love it. It's made me who I am. It makes me want to help others figure out who they are, especially kids, through sport and the power of sport.
You know, you just gave me a whole new perspective on cheerleading. Now, some people may know this about me or have heard me talk about it, but when I was younger, like I'm talking like single digits, I remember like driving by the fields on my way to practice, and we all practiced in the same vicinity. There was a couple of schools, and like you just knew when practices were going on, the place was packed. And I would always remember like, here are these girls on the sidelines, and like I'm in, ready in my soccer gear, and I'm about to get dirty, and there's these girls cheering on the sidelines, and I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you cheering for the boys? Like, go out and play, go do something. And like, it never like, I don't know what it was. Like my parents they had nothing wrong against cheerleaders. It was just me. I don't know where that came from, but I never understood why girls wanted to be cheerleaders, except when I saw them compete in Florida. I was like, whoa, I will shut up and never talk about it again.
That's a whole nother world. Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. But the fact that you wanted to be on the sideline because you understood the game and you knew what cheers to call to help get the fans into the game, because that's going to impact the players in the field. Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I never thought about that.
And I saw cheerleading as a way to like get myself into the game, even though I couldn't play. But I only did it one season.
But still, good experience. Talk about this row. Like, explain that to me, how you got that opportunity.
I want to say I was like a freshman in high school, and I went to a very elite high school. It was an all-girls Catholic high school right outside of Philadelphia. And I credit that school so much into making me the strong, inquisitive, and, just independent woman that I am today. My mom also went to that school, and so did my grandmother. But when they went, it was a much different type of school. It wasn't as, I guess, accelerated, or it became more than college prep. College was easier than my high school. Uh-huh. I was very different. And it was one of those things where I had grown up in a neighborhood and I had gone to Catholic grade school. So from kindergarten to 8th grade, you're around the same kids the whole time. And I lived in the very last neighborhood of Philly before the suburb line, because my father was a police officer, and that is where him and my mom had settled. And then my mom, my brother, and I stayed there. And so I grew up all with kids of cops, kids of firefighters, kids of EMTs. We were all just the kids of working class and first responders and nurses. And, and it just, that was our life. And then I go to high school, and I'm one of the city girls, and there's not a lot of us. And even though I was white, I'm still a city girl. And now I'm with girls who their moms don't have to work. Their dads are lawyers, their dads are surgeons, their dads commute every day to Wall Street. And it was very, very different. But what I saw was that just like how I studied so hard in grade school to be able to get an academic scholarship to go to this school because they didn't do athletic scholarships, I started to realize, like you could get athletic scholarships to go to top colleges. And you could do it in like golf, rowing, like non-traditional girls sports, right? But sports that are more associated with like Ivy Leagues or the higher end type colleges. And it was actually a friend of mine from Roxborough, and her mom had, because I think her mom worked for the city, heard about this program that the Fairmount Park District was doing. And it was a free like summer rowing program. And you could sign up for like 2 weeks. And basically they taught you how to row, everything about rowing, teaching you how to get on the ergs. teaching you the ins and outs of the boat. And, so I did it and it was great. My mom would drop me off at the boathouse every morning before she went to work. And we were there all day long. And I loved it so much. And I was with kids from, West Philly, North Philly, who had much different backgrounds than me, but we were all kids who we wouldn't have gotten this opportunity if it wasn't for this program. And I loved it so much that I re-signed. And I think I ended up doing the same 2-week program 3 times that summer. And it was something where I just loved it so much. And then I was able to try out for my school's crew team, which they're one of the best high school crew teams in the nation. It was very, very hard. I think my mom tried to save so much money for me to be able to pay all of the fees. And then you think our girls also had the best swag, the best uniform, and you have to pay for all of that. And I did that for one season as well, but it was a much different ending than cheerleading. It didn't end because I was like, okay, I did that. I'm done. I'll just go back to being a football fan. It was more of at this level, this is just not financially feasible for us, for my family, for myself. And it's still one of those things where I still love it. I really want to figure out a way to get myself get my butt back in a skull and just it's just so peaceful. If you've ever just been out on a river and not in racing, I'm not talking about racing, I'm just talking about rowing, just the rhythm of your slide, your row, it's just so beautiful. And there's a peacefulness to it. And I miss that part. I don't miss the racing. I miss that part. So I'm sure I'll get back to it someday. And it's so funny though, because it's I was able to parlay that into business, and I was able to, hydro for those, everybody's on Pelotons, right? But hydro are these luxury rowing machines that a lot of people and celebrities have been purchasing during COVID. And I kept getting all of these ads for hydro. And finally, I just reached out to them one day last year and I was like, hi, can I work for the NBA and WNBA Alumni Association? Can we get a partnership done so that you can have some of our legends be your ambassadors and yada, yada, yada. And really, I would not have even thought of that partnership or brought that to the table if it wasn't for my love of just rowing and what I know the simplicity of those motions and that exercise can bring to people. And it's turned into one of our CEO actually just said it yesterday. It's one of the best partnerships activations we've done in the last year.
Oh, look at that. All from this program that gave you an opportunity that you normally wouldn't have, and you were addicted to it. I love that you kept signing up for the same program, same 2-week or 3-week program, kept redoing it, and they didn't tell you no, which is amazing. And then it breaks my heart that you had to stop, right? But it doesn't take your love for I don't want to call it the game, but rowing, it doesn't go.
But I think it just shines a light on the fact that youth sports aren't really accessible to all youth. And that, now in my career, I'm really able to work in the professional sports space in a way to help develop youth through sports and provide them opportunities that they might not have gotten because of financial barriers or transportation barriers. And I lived it. So I know it and it's real. And I want to help change that.
Tell everybody what you do now and who you do it for.
I work for the National Basketball Retired Players Association. We go by NBRPA, we go by NBA alumni, WNBA alumni, but we are the official alumni association for any former player from the NBA and the WNBA. We are official in the sense that we are the one recognized by the NBA and the WNBA as the home, and we are their partner. So it's a really great organization. I think sometimes people are more familiar with the unions or the players associations, which represent the active players. But every sport, the big four at least, they do have alumni associations. And the thing that is so great about where I work is we get to work with really amazing and no lie, all caps, legendary women. And they are extremely inspiring. And it is such a blessing to be able to work with them. But what I do is I am the head of the Legends Care Initiative. And that is every program that we do in regards to youth and community. I'm also responsible for fundraising for these programs under the Legends Care Initiative. I've been able to create new programs because, in order to grow donor pools, you need to have a diverse portfolio of programming because not every donor is going to want to give to just one type of program. So we've been able to grow our programming. We've been able to grow our donor base. And it's really been exciting because it's more kind of startup-y almost in the sports industry, where, usually when you're with a team or something, you're being told what to do in the CR space based off of what the league's initiatives are. You're being told what to do in the foundation space based off of what the owner's pet projects are, or what their like the face of the franchise wants to give charitably to. So it's been really cool to spread my wings in this sense. And then also I have really been integral in the development of our Legends Media and Entertainment space that was launched last year in August. And that's really just because of COVID. It was one of those things we were all stuck at home. We were trying to figure out how can we still connect our legends to their fans and introduce them to new fans, meaning younger people who might not know about the older legends. And that's how I basically taught myself how to podcast, how to broadcast. And we've been able to, offer some really amazing storytelling opportunities. So we have a web show that's weekly. We have a new podcast that's twice a month. We're going to be spinning out a new podcast soon. It's been so cool to be able to see this side of the industry because, when you're at a team, teams have so many employees and it is so departmentalized. And there are reasons for that, obviously, but I'm sure if I was at a team and I was like, oh my God, it would be so cool if we got some of our old players and we did, podcast conversations with them. Someone would be like, yeah, that's great, but marketing's going to handle that. Or like, yeah, that's great, but that's comms. And here, because I'm with such a small organization, I was actually able to be involved in that. So it's giving me a greater appreciation of our industry. And it's also allowing me to learn some new things about myself. Like people who know me know, I would always say, I have this goal that, by a certain age, and I'm not going to say it, but by a certain age, I wanted to run a team's foundation. But really in the last year, and I did do that. So that goal was checked, but it is still, I want to get back to that. But now it's more of like, okay, wait, why am I stopping myself at foundation? Because there could be so much more to who I am and to what I could do and to how I could impact others.
You had this goal and you wanted to run a foundation, and then it sounds like your goal evolved. And like you were okay with that. Like that's so incredible. And I think people need to realize that it's okay. Like you can have a goal and you can either reach it and stay there and that's okay, or you can see it in a whole different light. And I feel like that's exactly what you did. And your work, you're in philanthropy. That is the business. Like you love that.
It's like my heart. Yeah. My heart and soul. Yeah.
I'm hearing you say you just keep finding new ways to expand on what you're doing. So you're just not like, I fit into this little box and this is the work that I'm going to do and that's it. You're trying to find ways to have a broader reach.
I think so. And I think it's one of those things too, where this new goal of mine, I don't even know what it is yet. I'm still trying to figure that out, but it's not scary. It's more exciting because it's showing me that I have worked so hard to come from where I came from in my childhood to be where I am now. And it's just so cool to think my 14-year anniversary is coming up this fall in professional sports. And I'm like just now realizing that there is so much more I can probably be doing that I didn't even realize 14 years ago, or I didn't even realize when I was 14 or 10 and I also am dedicated to learning and learning outside of my space, let's just say, because I think it's always just so interesting to see how different departments work together, how they rely on each other. And I always advise that when I speak to younger people, if you get your foot in the door at a team, be observant and understand, how do all of these departments make this wheel turn? And then the more you understand those inner workings, the easier it is to someday have a conversation with corporate partnerships and say, hey, when you're doing these corporate partnerships deals with new partners, why are you just throwing in a table for our foundation's gala? Why isn't there more of a charitable tie? Let's start that conversation. Or, hey, team store, what if we did a specialty item where all of the proceeds went to the foundation? Or, hey, concessions, what if we did a thing where people could round up their bill and the pennies or dimes or whatever it is, they go to the foundation? Like, trying to figure out these ways that through collaboration and teamwork, because it's not just the team on the field or the ice or the court that you're working for. The front office is a team too. And I feel like people forget about that sometimes, which I'm sure you also know. But
yes.
It's like, how can we make this whole thing better by stepping up our own games? And whether that's your individual game or your department's game, it's something I love. I love learning. And whether it's about the industry as a whole or just me as a leader, or, me now learning that my goal is changing and it's much more than I even could have imagined. I don't know. That's just who I am and I love it.
In terms of working, like, how did you get your foot in the door? Or let's ask it differently. Who did you first work for and what did you do?
My first paying taxes taken out job in sports was with the Washington Capitals. And I was going into my junior year of college. It was kind of funny. I really wanted to work in the music industry.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And there's a whole story there, but you and I can chat about that another time. But someone gave me the wise advice, who was in the industry, and just said, this industry is changing. The need for actual human bodies to do all of these different roles is diminishing because of the rise of technology. You are really going to be doing a disservice to yourself if you try to get a sports industry management degree, which I was considering transferring to a school that had a program that was sports industry management. So I stayed where I was. I stayed in traditional business. And it was one of those things where I was just like, okay, I've done these music industry internships, but now I'm not going to do that as a career. So I need to figure out a new thing. And
wait a second. So you're telling me you went out, you did some internships, and that's when you learned, oh, this dream of working in music is not it. It's not for me. Is that right?
Yeah, because someone gave me the really good advice, and I was like, I chose to listen to them. I could have been stubborn and been like, this person doesn't know what they were talking about. But for some reason, my gut was just telling me to trust them. And this is back in 2005, 2006-ish. So I didn't have an iPhone yet. I didn't even have an iPod because they were expensive and whatever. But, it was MySpace was a thing then. And it was, this person said to me, they were just like, listen, technology is what is coming in the music industry is insane. You are insane if you pigeonhole yourself in this industry. So basically the person was also telling me to stick with, you're in just a traditional business school. You're getting a general business degree. You're going to be able to take transferable skills into any industry. Don't go to this sports industry school because it may end up closing doors to you.
Interesting. All right, good. And so you learned what you didn't want to do, which I think is important as well. You got some advice, but you did the internships in music, and then you were like, no, thank you. See you later. I'm going to go do something else, which is so important. And that's why I always tell people, while you can take internships, gosh, take them and in different departments within the sports thing or whatever industry you want to go in. But within sports, just try them all out. It's going to save you so much time. Think about it. If you can get an internship every year of college, you can try out. That's easier said than done, but you can try out so many different things. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
No, but it's so true. And then while you're there, even if it's not a department that you really think is going to be your end goal department, But once you're there, like you learn about all these other departments. So at the Caps, I was not obviously in a position where I could have an unpaid internship. So how I got my start in sports is I took a game night staff position, which paid, I think it was like less than $8 an hour or something. We had to wear these uniforms, we worked games, but it was because I already had a work study. So I was getting some money through work study, but like I needed some additional funds to live in DC as, you know, a 20-year-old. I was not able to apply for unpaid internships, but I saw this position at that time. It like really was, and I know people hate this, but it like really was right place, right time, because the Caps absolutely sucked. And I know like if like, say I went to school in Philly, right? Say I went to Drexel or Temple or St. Joe's or something, and it was the same exact day and time and whatever, and I was looking for jobs with the Flyers, there would have been nothing there because it's Philly and the Big Four. Those internships and those game day jobs just get snatched up so quickly. And it's not really an opportunity that, and maybe it's changed now, but back in the day, like there wasn't really a lot of opportunity for outsiders of the industry, which I consider myself. So to be able to be in college in DC, the Caps were like, literally, you can look up the records. They were going into that 2007, 2008 season as the worst team in hockey. And they wanted to pay people to work at games. And I was like, yes, sign me up.
I'm in.
It was guest services, but as you know, every team calls everything differently. So it was guest services in the sense that they were dealing with season plan holders, not all fans in the arena. So we were specifically dealing with season plan holders. I really liked it. It gave me my first glimpse behind the curtain. I really just got to know my supervisors. I made it known that I was serious about wanting to work in sport. I talked to them a lot. I asked them questions. I asked them for advice. I would talk to my younger supervisors who were entry level themselves and say like, yo, like, have you ever thought about it this way? Or what if we organize ticket exchange this way? And it was one of those things that's just kind of how I hit the ground running, just being myself. And if it wasn't for that position, which then led to so much more, I would not even know that, like, or maybe I would have learned it later, but I would not have had the light bulb go off over my head of, oh, wait, there's a community relations department. I could work for a professional sports team and use the power of the team and its athletes and its resources to impact kids, families, communities in a majorly positive way. Okay, this aligns with who I am as a person. This kind of reflects what my childhood background was. I want to do this.
I love that. So you were using your voice and speaking up when you were a game day employee. Like you didn't think that was like a reason that you should just punch your clock, do your job and leave. You were talking to, as I can just picture this, you were just talking to as many people as you could. And then you were sharing, advice. And I'm sure that they didn't use every single thing that you suggested, right? Like sometimes they were like, all right, Bridget, no, but thanks. Yeah. Right. But like, how did you just keep going? Like, where does that, like, what were you telling yourself to keep going and keep pushing and being like, okay, that's fine. Next time I'm going to keep coming. Because it's so easy when you have an idea and you're your own audience, right? And you like come up with this idea and you think it's the best idea in the world, right?
Right.
And then you go to deliver it and someone's like, no, or thank you. That's great. Thank you so much. And then you're like, oh wait, that's it. Like, cause when I delivered this in my head, like there was applause, there was like a standing O, you know what I mean? Like I got awards, but how did you keep like moving forward and keep like, I don't know, just knocking at the door?
You know what? I think at that time, I was just being myself. I was literally learning. And so I was just asking a lot of questions and pointing things out. And I also feel like at those earliest stages of 20-year-old Bridget, 21-year-old Bridget, like there was less on the line, right? I wasn't full-time. I was still in college. I saw this as like, this was like a learning opportunity. So I kind of feel like as I matured and grew into this industry and started to have status and title and full-time positions and benefits and a staff, I feel like sometimes when there's even more on the line, you kind of shut your mouth a little bit more, or you don't broadcast it as maybe loudly. You find that confidant and you're like, okay, hey, got this idea. How do you think it would impact other departments? I don't want to broadcast this yet. I think that let's just say the strategy changes and how you communicate changes.
I like that. So really you're talking about the power of curiosity and learning and doing everything that through that lens. And then as you grew in your career, you didn't stop that. You didn't turn off that curiosity. You didn't turn off that I'm going to raise my hand and use my voice and say, give you ideas on what we should be doing to better the organization. You became a little smarter in your approach, right? So you really use the power of internal politics, right? And you found the value in talking to key stakeholders first to get buy-in before you shared an idea. Did I get that right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And also too, willing to take somebody aside and be like, hey, that idea that's not going to work. And like, these are some reasons why. Because that's something also I think it's really important. And even as people grow into leadership roles and executive positions, you need to be able to see the 30,000 feet picture, but you need to understand the logistics behind it. And so many of us who have, really matured in the sports industry and started at lower levels and have grown and, risen the ladder, we were all in those logistics heavy execution based jobs. So it's like, don't forget about that. Keep that in the back of your head. And so when there's sometimes like these grandiose ideas, try to like also step back and be like, okay, but wait, what departments would be impacted by that? How would this actually have to happen? Because, I think there's nothing wrong with reality and actually trying to work reality into an idea.
Yes, I love that. And I mean, it's just launching these new programs and bringing ideas to the table. To me, it sounds like I can imagine you just had a lot of allies. Like, it seems like something you were probably good at.
I'm not going to present an idea that I don't know I can execute or my team can, or like I just said, being realistic, there's nothing wrong with that. So always remembering to bring reality into brainstorming. I love brainstorming, and I will talk to people at other teams, like people, and I'll just be like, all right, what are you working on? Let me work you through it. And I will brainstorm till, the sun goes down and rises again. I love it. But also then really figuring out, okay, which ones could actually work? And then those are the ones that I really push for. And I think people know that about me. That is one of the things that people in this industry know when it comes to Bridget Gannon. Oh, she gets shit done. Like, she will get it done. If she is on the job, things are getting done. The needle is being moved. Things are happening. And whether it's because of my direct involvement or because I'm able to set up a team that's able to execute it, that's just part of my reputation. And I am extremely proud of that. Yeah. And I think because of that, and I have proven that about me time and time and time again, I have allies. And so people do trust me to take an idea and run with it, even if it's not my own. Mm-hmm. Even if it comes from somewhere else, above, below, next door, whatever. If it's a good idea and I can see that it's really going to elevate my department, our organization, the community, whatever, I'll get it done. And I think that's why I have allies. They know they can trust me on many different levels.
I love that. There's definitely a layer of trust there. Now, You are the get shit done queen, right? And we have not had the pleasure of working together, but I just sense that from you. I get it. Talk a little bit about like what happens when you get shit done, but you fail. Like your project doesn't go the way you thought it would go. Like how do you, Bridget, handle that and like bounce back?
First of all, failure can encapsulate so much, right? It might not be a program completely failing. It might just be maybe you didn't hit your fundraising goal or something. But I'm really great at this with my friends and like my colleagues of being like that. Okay, let's look at the silver lining, or no, but on the positive side. But when it comes to myself, it's really hard to do that for myself. But I try. And so what I'll try to do if, take the example of not hitting a fundraising goal because you don't have the safety net of season plan holders, corporate partners, fans, what have you, like in my current organization. Legends Care is so much of like a startup, really. And I came from being able to raise over $1 million in one night, leading the Dream Foundation, our annual gala. So I'm coming in like, all right, I know what I can do. I know what I'm able to do. And then like, I remember the first time I was trying to raise money for something with Legends Care, I couldn't even raise $1,000. And it wasn't for lack of trying and it wasn't for lack of hustle, but it was one of those things. And it's funny because it's become my mantra. Baby steps are still steps, and we can't beat ourselves up about it. And you have to learn from it. Don't replicate the failure. If you failed, you should never fail in that same way again. Like you should learn from it. You should grow from it. And if you have to repeat that program or that event, whatever, you pivot from what you did wrong the last time and you learn from it and you grow from it. But in regards to this personal, like fundraising failure, I'd say I had in my early days, I had to look at it as, okay, it's not a total failure. You didn't meet your goal. You might feel like a failure, but that's a personal problem. It wasn't a total failure. There are still money that you have now that you would not have had if it wasn't for your work. And you're still going to be able to make an impact with the money that you did raise. And I think another thing too, like with, I'll just say it was a personal failure. And it goes back to me just being the person who just like gets stuff done is I thought I needed to be able to get everything done on my own to prove my own worth and prove my own value. And I thought that putting together a job description and making a case that we need to hire someone else to take over XYZ, that made me look like a failure in someone else's eyes. And that to the executive team or ownership showed, well, why can't Bridget do this? Bridget's as you just said, Bridget's the get shit done queen. Why does she need someone else? Like maybe she's not right for this job. Maybe we don't need her anymore if she can't get this done.
Like you were thinking, okay, if I'm going to ask for additional help, support, new hires, that's going to reflect poorly on me.
Yes. So by asking for help, I thought people would see me as a failure because I could not do it myself. And where this whole concept was a complete fail is that, no, that's not true at all. And that was just something I was imagining and creating in my own brain. And I unfortunately learned the lesson that it shouldn't be that hard to translate the value you bring, and you don't have to kill yourself over it. Like that is actually a failure on organizational structure. If that's happening, that's not you being a failure. And I saw it in, a lot of men, what they'll do is they'll come in, okay, in order for me to get the job done, I'm going to need 2 of these. I'm going to need 1 of these, and I'm going to need an assistant. And I'm going to do all this. And it's like, okay, yeah, because we know you'll get the job done and we know you'll build the right team. Whereas me, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm this woman. They've known me since I was so young. Like they're going to just think I can't do it. And that, why does she need help? But now I know that being able to build your own team and being able to voice when there is a need for additional staff members and being able to present the case of why and what the ROI would be. It's all very important.
Hey, Jahaan here. I hope you're enjoying the interview. I'm sure you are thinking about your own career right now and how you can pull out in front of the pack to take your career to the next level. For 18 years, supporting women in sports has been my favorite part of my career, and I would love to support you. Whether it's joining my free Game of Her Own community or one of my one-on-one coaching programs, I am here for you. Send me a message at jblake@jahaanblake.com or DM me on Instagram at jahaanblake, and let's schedule a time to have a free session. I cannot wait to hear from you. All right, let's get back to why you're here.
Sometimes I love failure. Like, I know that sounds weird, but like I do, because gosh, does it, like, the lessons, if you can embrace it and if you can like snap yourself out of it and like bring yourself out of it. And when I say out of it, I'm talking about that, I won't call it poor me, but like, you know, like you just feel like absolute shit when you fail. I know how I feel, but if you can get past that, then there's so much beauty in like from the learning of it. And for you, I hear the one side of like, okay, now you realize, okay, when I ask for team, like that means so much more, that my leadership isn't going to view me a certain way. But it's also, I see the mindset that you could have learned from or others can learn from is that story that you make up and tell yourself. Like, like I don't know where, like we all do it and I don't know where it comes from, but like we make up stories and like they have no validity whatsoever. It's just like, well, where did you get that from? Like when someone challenges you, you're like, I have no idea. I actually just made that up in my own head. Like, again, audience of one. You were just like, I don't know, I was talking to myself and I agreed with myself. That's where that story came from. It made total sense at the time. But there's so much clarity when you do run into that burnout or, you know, like you can't get stuff done because you don't have anybody on your team and you realize, oh, if I just asked, I would be so much further ahead. I will never make that mistake again, to your point.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is one of the biggest lessons I've learned, let's just say in the last 4.5, 5 years, is there is no moment better than now. The worst thing that could happen is just a no. And so whether it is trying to build a team, ask for support staff, present your case for a raise, a promotion, whatever, just do it. And I feel like I learned that way too late. And that's something that I try to, some of the young men and women that I mentor, I try to be like, you know, I hope you learned this earlier than I did. But yeah, because we do. And especially as women in this industry, I think, you know, particularly, we get in our heads about a lot of things. And we see people, and most of the time it's a lot of men, moving up quicker than us or getting opportunities that we didn't have. And it's like, you just sit there and it's like, why did this happen? And you rationale it and you build bitterness towards someone or resentment. And then it's like, well, just open your mouth, like just do something about it. Because that guy is probably not having the internal conversation with himself that you are. That guy's probably like, oh, I'm hot shit. Of course I deserve this. Of course oh, I've never done that job, but I could do it in my sleep. Like, you know, it's
yes. You know what? That's true. And I do think that, and not to generalize too much, but like, it's hard not to, like, I do think a lot of men are just like, they're not making up stories. They're not, you know what I mean? They might be internalizing stuff, but they're going for it, or handle knows a lot better. But I do think that we also have to realize women who we see going after it and doing the thing doesn't mean it's all pretty behind the scenes.
Oh, so true.
I think we all suffer from mindset issues, and I think men do as well. I just think we just don't know what's going on in someone else's head. Like, just you gotta push past it. So when you see somebody who's out there, just, and I'm thinking of a few people right now that are just popping in my head, and they are like, I mean, they are killing the game right now. And I love seeing it. These women doing amazing things, but it doesn't mean that they didn't have, and I think it's part of the reason I like to do this podcast. It doesn't mean that they didn't fail. Doesn't mean that they have some mindset issues. Doesn't mean that they had like really, you know, a rough time trying to get where they are. No one talks about those things publicly because it's not as easy to do, to share those things publicly. Like, right. Like you don't share every single failure you have on Instagram, because who wants to do that? Who has time to do that.
Yeah. And like pre-COVID, post-COVID, who's going to buy tickets and fill a ballroom to hear a demotivational speaker? Like,
right.
You know what I mean?
Right. But, yes. You need to go through it and then be able to turn around and share it, just like you're doing today. Like you've had to like go through all these things to turn around and share it. If I asked you the day after you figured out that you should probably ask for help, it wouldn't have been as clear as to how to give people advice, right? Because it was still new and fresh. So you kind of have to go through it. You have to go through it first.
To carry off of that. So it's funny because in the past couple of years, a very, very dear friend of mine, she was in a work experience where one of her coworkers, amazing news, so happy, pregnant, is going to be going out on maternity leave. And, and that's wonderful. And that's a whole different conversation of, maternity benefits and paternity benefits and whatnot. But for her, she was going to be taking on this person's workload. They weren't going to be dispersing it amongst a few people. It was all going to be going on to one person. And I remember she texted me and I immediately picked up the phone and I called her and I was like, go to somewhere where we can have a private conversation right now. And I said to her, I was like, listen, you do not wait until after you've done all this work to say, okay, great. I was able to handle my job and another person's job. So will I be getting a bonus? Will I be getting a title? I go, you go now. You go now and you make the case. Hi, so I know we're all so happy for so-and-so. I'm going to be the sole person taking on their job. I'll be doing my job and their job. I would like to negotiate what my bump in pay will be for that time, or if there will be a salary or, title change or any additional benefits. I was like, you do that now, because any guy would do that now. And that's something that now, having done the opposite and learned the hard way with personal experiences, I am now the stand on top. I'm like the Ricola guy on top of the Swiss Alps with the horn, just announcing Ricola to the world. I am now that person with my friends and colleagues. If something like that is going to happen, or if you're going to be in an interim position or an acting position because your boss is taking sabbatical or leaving, I'm like, you have that discussion now. Because the worst that could happen is they say no. And then you understand, oh, okay, they don't value me the way that I thought they did. And that's when you start looking for other places.
Yes. I think that's fantastic advice. Did she listen?
Yes, she did. It took her a little bit, but she also, she knew I was coming from a very real place, and it took her a little bit of time to, to get over the nerves and the fear, quite honestly, but she did it. And she was able to get some additional benefits, let's say, negotiated prior to the fact and before having to prove herself months and months later. And then they already get your work product and they're like, oh, well, no, thanks. Thank you for doing that.
So now exactly. So now she took your advice, which was incredible advice. She felt the fear and did it anyway. And she was able to get some increase in her benefits, let's just call it her compensation. So how did she feel after?
I think it was still disbelief maybe. And I think there's something too, and I'm not going to generalize this is all women. I think this is more individual based. But I think too, there's still that nagging fear in the back of even though you've already done the ask and it's been, settled, it was either a no or there was a negotiation or whatever. For some of us, I think still in the back of your head, it's kind of just you don't see it as a win. You see it more of oh, do they see me as a troublemaker? Or, oh, am I now black sheep of the organization? And it's why do we think that?
That's so interesting. That is not what I expected you to say at all. And I agree. It's I call it a vulnerability hangover. Right. And so, and then I put myself out there, I do it. And then depending on what it is, sometimes it's just whew, that was I crushed it, but that was a lot. Right. Or sometimes it's you ask yourself those questions. Oh, shoot, wait, I did that. Was that the right thing? But even if you get the result you were hoping for,
so you
crazy. Still question it. And I know people who are listening and are either driving right now or walking and are Yes, exactly. That's what I suffer from too. Like, I don't know what that name is, but we'll just call it a hangover for now. But like,
yeah,
because there's maybe there's some regret in doing it, but I find that hard to believe, right? Because you got what you wanted. So I don't know what to call it and what name. And people who are listening, if you have something to call it, please let us know, because we'll start using that phrase. But like, yeah, what you just said is real, and that is not what I expected you to say, but it is definitely something that I think a lot of us like go through.
Yes.
What we need is, I wish we could do like a case study on your friend there. And obviously this is not going to happen. We're not going to get all nosy into her business, but like a case study on like what she felt, her side of the story, and then like go interview like the people she talked to and like what they thought. And they were like, no, we thought she was really smart. That was a good idea. Don't know what took her so long.
Or, what would be the worst though, is if like the HR representative or, the supervisor or whatever was like, yeah, that was nothing. She could have asked for way more. Like, oh, that would have got me like,
I guess it'd be nice to know what the other side is thinking.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with asking too. Afterwards, you get what you want, sign the paper, and then you can always ask if you have that relationship with somebody you think that will be straightforward with you, like a Bridget, who will tell you exactly what you're thinking. Like you would probably give some, be like, yes, I was so proud of you for doing that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's amazing. Yeah. All right. Are you ready for rapid fire questions?
Oh gosh, I hope so.
12 questions. First thing that comes to mind, just say it. What is your favorite sports moment?
My mind is blank because I think there's so many. 2008 Phillies World Series parade. It was Halloween, and I called out of working the Capitals that day, and my supervisor understood. He was like, of course, like you're going to the parade. And I'd taken like a Chinatown bus up the night before from DC to Philly. And I take the train down from Chestnut Hill. I meet a bunch of my friends, and we all, get ourselves to Broad Street to watch the parade. And I'll just never forget. I am a huge Pat Burrell fan. There are young girl crush reasons behind that, but that fandom continued, and still to this day. He actually led the parade, and he was on the Budweiser Clydesdale like carriage. And I'll never forget when we like see the parade turn its way around City Hall and comes down Broad Street. And all of a sudden I see Pat the Bat is freaking leading the parade with the Clydesdales. I was with one of my friends, and I was like, put me on your shoulders right now. Put me on your shoulders. And he put me on his shoulders, and I'll never forget. I'm like cheering, and, Pat is like, observing like the whole crowd, both sides of Broad Street, and waving. And there was a moment, JB, he pointed right at me, and I pointed back at him, and I was like, we did it. And like that moment, and I know it's so stupid and it is so like girly, but it was just one of those things that I swear it happened. We pointed at each other, and it was a moment.
I don't think that's girly at all. I think that's super, like, it's just human and passionate. And I don't know, did you cry after?
I cried when they won. So yes, there is crying in baseball.
Oh,
but
100%.
But no, I didn't know, not on parade day. There's a funny picture it's from somebody, I guess, who was standing like in the middle of Broad Street. And they take a picture of Pat, and he's pointing out, to the left. And I swear to God, it's me he's pointing at. Like, I swear it was that moment that picture captured. And that is what my crazy imagination tells myself.
All right. So far, we are failing at rapid fire, but that was an amazing story. All right.
I'm sorry. Okay. I'll be better.
You got this. Ready? This is super easy. What is something people always get wrong about you?
They might think I came from, a financially privileged background in childhood.
What is one food you wouldn't want to give up?
Ooh, potatoes, like any kind, any type. Just give me a potato. Girl. I can do so much with it.
Same. Do you have an air fryer?
No, I don't, but I know people are obsessed with them.
Get one. Like if this Game of Our Own was sponsored by like an air fryer, like that would be fine. And I would have totally like sent you one for free. Okay. Potatoes. Oh, do you like sweet potatoes?
No, that's the one I do not. Nope.
Wow. I just feel like, I don't know, something just happened. I don't know if
We
we
are
be friends.
no longer best friends.
Nope. I don't think we'd be friends anymore. Are you a morning or a night person?
Night.
Favorite holiday?
4th of July, if I can be down the Jersey Shore.
I am from New Jersey, and that's the last place I want to be. It's so funny. I'm a Jersey girl, though. What job would you be absolutely horrible at doing?
Like being like a cab driver, because then others would have to see how I get in traffic.
I can't. Okay. What product would you seriously stockpile if you found out they weren't going to sell it anymore?
Oh, it's got to be like a foundation or something like that. That is just, something like definitely like some type of color match foundation or something that, is like going away, or a fragrance or my signature scent. Oh my God. I've worn the same perfume since I was like 13. Estee Lauder, never stop making pleasures.
Oh my God, I can't. What is your favorite app?
Spotify. Music all the time.
Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram?
Oh, Twitter, definitely.
Who is your biggest inspiration in life?
I think my mom.
As a child, what did you wish to become when you grew up?
Oh, this is funny. Okay, there's 3, but I'll give them rapid fire. Okay, so first was a dairy farmer, second was Whitney Houston, and third was President of the United States.
Oh my God. I mean, here's the deal. I don't know if you can sing or not, but like all 3 of those you can be. I mean, you can't be Whitney Houston, but you can be, the next Whitney Houston.
Yeah, there's still time.
Wait, can you sing?
Yes, I can.
Oh, did not know that about you. Okay.
We'll go to karaoke.
Yes, I will just watch. Finish this sentence. The future of women working in sports is?
Now, all caps, NOW, period, exclamation point, all the things.
Bridget, this has been amazing. If someone wants to get in touch with you, how can they go about doing that?
Yeah. So like I said, Twitter is my jam. You can find me there at Bridget_Gannon_. I'm more responsive there than Instagram, but I'm also on Instagram. Or just drop me an email. You can email me at bridgetinsports@gmail.com and I will get your message.
So you're a Twitter person. I'm more of an Instagram person, LinkedIn maybe. I hate Facebook, but it's just there. What would you say? Like if someone's trying to like learn more about sports or just keep like their ear to the ground, where would you say they should spend a lot more of their time? Because you only have so much time you could be on social media, right?
Yep.
So Twitter, Instagram, or LinkedIn?
So definitely LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is the professional platform. But I mean, yeah, I have to give Clubhouse some love because there is a power to Clubhouse. And I have, from the amount of time I've been on Clubhouse, I have just learned so much from other executives and industry leaders and industry vets who are in so many different departments that like, why would I have ever known the director of corporate partnerships at the New York Jets? I wouldn't have, but now I do. And I've learned so much from him in a very short amount of time. Or like, why would I know someone who handles betting for MGM? I really wouldn't, but I know her now and she's another Philly girl and we're friends. And I've learned a shit ton from her about sports betting and virtual sports. And it's like, where else can you listen to industry professionals having like best practice and evolution of the industry type conversations? And then figure out a way to follow them on Twitter or Instagram and actually follow up with them. Honestly, that's one of the best things that has come out of COVID is that there has been so much more time and access that younger people and people wanting to learn more about this industry have gained. It's really been like a fountain of learning and information and networking. And I think, COVID is a lot of negative things, but that I see that as a huge positive.
Yes, there's a lot of positives that have come out of it. Obviously, I would rather have not had COVID, but will impact the world, not me personally, but impact the world. But there are a lot of silver linings. Okay, so if someone's sitting there like, okay, Bridget, I'm going to give this a chance. Like I'm going to check out Clubhouse because you told me to. What should they do? Like, should they listen in on? Like, are there things that you like to listen in on, or like what should they look for? How do they get started?
Yeah, so they can like search. There are certain clubs. There's, one club that I know some really amazing women started is Women in Sports. And you can there are so many different sports business clubs, but there's Women in Sports. There's one that's like Women in Sports Business. I think Pro Sports Assembly has one on there. I have a club where every Friday morning we talk about what has made us feel good in the world of sports from the last week. And it's called the Power of Sports Club, because we just want to talk about positivity and how sports is positively impacting others. But there are so many things. Another thing that is so cool is learning so much about the correlation between sports, esports, virtual sports, NFTs. It's really learning so much. And then you can figure out okay, how does blockchain, NFT, and cryptocurrency affect ticket sales? Or how does it affect concessions? How does it affect merchandising? How does it affect the foundation? You can listen and then let your mind run wild and try to figure out how could I have these things impact my world in sport? And it's totally eye-opening. And I highly recommend it before it goes away and ends, because that could very well happen.
Yeah, right. I've seen some things, but okay. So that makes sense. What I'm going to do in the show notes, I will link to your Clubhouse handle.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And I'll also link to, if I can do this separately, your Friday morning chats, or at least list the name out so people know how to search and find you.
Yeah.
Okay. We could talk forever. So I'm going to stop this. You guys check out everything in the show notes about what we just talked about. And I will link to things in there. Bridget, thank you so much for joining us. This was amazing.
Thank you. It is always a pleasure to talk with you, JB. And I am just so inspired and proud of everything that you are doing for, women, veterans, people starting out, but women in this industry. And thank you so much for thinking of me to come on your amazing platform.
So what did you think of this episode? Do you know another woman who works or is aspiring to work in sports? Would you do me a favor and share this with them? It would mean so much if together we could support and inspire other women on their journey. And let's stay connected. I love meeting and talking to new people. Follow me on Instagram at Jahaan Blake, and join the free Game of Her Own community by visiting jahaanblake.com. I can't wait to meet you.